Actually, you know what all tech YouTubers have is they always have like a plant. Like a spiky plant. I think I have a spiky plant. I watched what felt like a bajillion tech videos while I was like preparing for this. There we go. And there's always like a spiky plant. Kitty, you gotta stay in the other room today. I'm sorry, you're staticky. It's not your fault. I finally have all my parts in one place. I had some shipping issues, but we're past that now. And I'm ready to build my new gaming / editing / streaming / recording PC. This video has been sponsored by nobody. I bought all of this myself. And nobody sent me any of it for free. None of it was cheaper. No special contacts, really nothing going on here. I picked out and purchased all of these things as a regular consumer, so I am free to give you my actual and honest opinion on them as we're building. Before we get too far into this is not a step-by-step guide on how to build a PC. I am not qualified to make one of those, but I did watch a bunch of them in preparation for this that I will link down below. But let me talk you through some of the goals that I have for this new computer. So I want to upgrade my video workflow for YouTube to 4K 60 frames per second. I want that to be buttery smooth in both the recording and encoding as the computer's playing the game that we're recording and encoding, but also in editing, in effects, in rendering. I want all of it to work smoother than it has been on my current rig. I want better multitasking so that I can be rendering a video and then also still working on the thumbnail in Photoshop or getting more footage for the next thing or whatever. It obviously needs to run World of Warcraft really well, but that is such a low bar that it doesn't really need to be considered as long as you're hitting all these other things. And it's gotta be pretty. I have never really built a pretty computer before because I'm scared of RGB and my cable management skills are going to horrify you. But I want to try this time, and the goal, I think, is to have something that, you know, works, first of all, because I'm an amateur builder. Turns on would be good. I would like to get the lights working. Like I said, I've never set up RGB before, and I'm notoriously bad at forgetting case connectors. My first computer I turned on exclusively from the backside because I never hooked up the power button and I didn't want to go back in and mess with it. So those are my goals for this new rig. Next, let me talk you through some of the parts that I have selected that I'm really excited about. So first one up here, for the processor, I have decided to go with a Threadripper. I never ever thought I would see the day. I was an Intel person, I always bought Intel, and the day came. It came down to the fact that for $900, this is a Threadripper 2950X. This has got 16 cores with 32 threads. I'm happy with the base clock speed of 3.5 gigahertz with the boost up to like 4.4-ish. And then on the Intel side of things, by the time you step up to a processor that can beat this, especially in editing and rendering benchmarks, you're paying almost twice as much. It's just kind of a no-brainer. So we're going with a Threadripper 2950X. And then to work with that, I've got the MSI Gaming Pro Carbon AC motherboard. There were a couple of different motherboards that I was picking between that all did basically the same thing. This is the one that I ended up going with. I like that it has 8 slots for RAM so that if I decide to double my RAM down the road, I can do that. I like that it has 3 M2 slots because I've decided to go with 3 NVMe drives in this build, and it's nice to be able to attach them. Obviously, it's got gigabit Ethernet. This one also comes with a PCI Bluetooth card, which I actually am going to use because I use Bluetooth headphones. And yeah, it's got this handy little sticker on it that specifically says 2nd Gen Ryzen Threadripper ready. I tried very hard to pick extremely compatible parts. Like, there's compatible parts and then there's slapping stickers on so that you know it's going to work with it. Because those are the biggest complaints that I've heard about Threadripper online, is that it doesn't play nicely with everything. So I took some extra pains to get stuff that should get along. So that's the motherboard. I mentioned that we're doing triple NVMe drives, so here they are. These are SSDs. I have 2 Samsung 970 Pros, 1 Samsung 970 EVO. This thing is 500 gigabytes, these two are 512. And the reason I have handfuls of hard drives is specifically for editing. All 3 of these should be very fast. I've never worked with an NVMe drive before, but the theory behind it is you're no longer bottlenecked by SATA data transfer speeds, so you can take better advantage of the niftiness of SSDs, so those should be good. I'm going to have one with my operating system and program files on it, the second one will be for my project files, and then the third one will be my scratch drive, and then I have an old 3.5-inch storage drive in my old PC that I will be moving over because that just has my video archives and nothing really needs to change there. What else do we got here? For graphics card, I spent too much money. This is an Nvidia 2080 Ti. It's kind of stupid. I play WoW, but I've never had like the graphics card. I remember back when all of the gaming YouTubers of the day were building with Titans, and I guess that was a bad influence on me, but I am using my GPU to help power my video encoding, both when I'm recording something and also when I'm rendering it out. So it's not wasted, it's just a lot. And you know, it'll run BFA really good. For cooling, I picked up one of these things. This is a Corsair H115i Pro. This is an all-in-one liquid cooling system. So this does not fit the Threadripper bracket, as I'm about to find out. Apparently, the original H150i that came out earlier does fit, but the H150i Pro that I have here that came out later and is the one that's currently available is not compatible out of the box with the Threadripper. There is an adapter bracket that will allow it to work, but those are very hard to find. They seem to be completely sold out, and in any case, the pump head on this thing is not big enough to properly cover the Threadripper. I end up going with another option later in the video. I do not recommend the H150i Pro for a Threadripper, but if you're working with a more standard chip size, this will be just fine. For my RAM, this is 64 gigabytes of 2933 megahertz G-Skill Flare X RAM. I look for the 2933 speed specifically because that is the maximum that the Threadripper can handle, and we got 64 gigabytes because 128 would have been really too expensive. This was already bad enough, but hopefully that should do the job. After Effects in particular seems to eat as much RAM as you can throw at it, so it'll be nice to be working with a little bit more. For my power supply, I figured I went so big on everything else, the power supply was no place to cheap out, so I got a 850 watt titanium power supply, and 850 is just like a generous number for what all this is going to take. I might have been able to tweak it on a 750, but 850 gives me a little room in case I upgrade something later. But the titanium series, as opposed to platinum or gold or bronze or what have you, are just a little bit more efficient and a little bit more expensive and theoretically more reliable. I've never had a power supply actually bust on me, but this is not the time to start. So we went for a good one. And then I got my Windows 10. I got a anti-static wrist strap that I'm going to wear for half of the build before I get annoyed and take it off and then just touch my case a lot. And I also bought a screwdriver just because the one that I had was really dinky and I wasn't quite sure it was going to do it. I also grabbed a teacup to put any loose screws and whatnot into, and it has a little goldfish in the bottom, so that's nice. This is a Phanteks Enthoo Luxe Tempered Glass Edition. I've built twice before in the Phanteks Enthoo Pro case. I have loved it every time. I almost bought a third one. I just didn't want to have 3 of the exact same case in my apartment, so I went for the slightly prettier version. It's got tempered glass on the side, it's got some RGB around the front. Alright, so I'm gonna get started. I don't know exactly how much detail I'm gonna be able to show you, but we will see, and I will hopefully see you on the other side. Okay, so fun update. So that is the Corsair H150i. When I bought it, I had confused it with the old H115, which either had a bracket or was compatible with the Threadripper socket. This one does not come with a bracket, and there is no way to really set it up with the Threadripper without getting a bracket that is just like not available. It's too small anyways, so I'm gonna return it. And I late night, last minute, went out and picked up this thing instead. So this is a Thermal Take Water 360 ring with 2 eyes. But the guy in the store actually opened up one of these for me to make sure that it had the correct bracket. So shout out to Brent. Hopefully that did the trick. So I'm going to deinstall this because I already installed the fans in the radiator and the radiator on the case. I'm probably going to do some office cleanup because it's a bit of a disaster. You know, this looks alright, but the rest of this place, let me see if I can show you. This is just such a disaster. I am just a mess. So there's just like, it's just, I mean, it could be worse, but it could be a lot better. So I will update again. And let you know if I managed to get a cooler on this thing, because other than that, we're almost done. I decided to do the cooler second to last and the graphics card last. Everything else I think is hooked up. Anyways, I'm going to do all of that, and we'll see how it goes. Oh. Okay, it's on. Fans are all spinning. Okay, so welcome back to my life. It is now noon on Wednesday, which is the day after I started. And behind me, I have both my new and my old computer. The reason why I have them both opened up is because I was desperately trying to diagnose why my new rig would not post. I had tried a lot of stuff, and a lot of this is my own fault for thinking, I could just throw it in the case. I don't need to breadboard it. You know, it'll probably work. So I had done all this cable management, and then I had to undo it all and take it all out, and I really hate PSU cables. They're so sharp. But anyway, it wouldn't post. I disconnected everything. I attached a motherboard speaker, and I couldn't even get it to beep. The only way I got it to beep was when I completely took all the RAM out, and then it gave me a beep code that was like, put your RAM back in, dummy. And I couldn't get it to work. And eventually, the thing that did work, just in case you are somehow building a Threadripper PC and you have this problem. The thing that worked was I needed to update my BIOS, which is tricky when you can't get into your BIOS. And luckily, my motherboard has a feature that essentially lets you update the BIOS without posting. So the way that works is you take a FAT32 USB stick, and I think it has to be 16 gigs or less, connect it to another computer, download the exact correct driver for your motherboard, has to be the right one, from their website, extract those files onto the USB stick, rename, in this case, rename the BIOS file to msi.rom. Make sure that that is in the root folder of the USB, and then stick that USB in the BIOS flashback port, which is very clearly marked on the I/O shield. Turn it on, and then press the BIOS flashback button once, and the USB lights up and the BIOS flashback button starts flashing. And I just had to take a walk and let it do that, and don't touch anything and don't reset anything, and just let it do that until it's done. And that updated the BIOS to a version that was compatible with presumably my Threadripper, was I think the problem. I've had a long day, I'm confused now. I was hoping that I wouldn't have to do something like that, and the reason why it was like the last thing I tried is because the motherboard box came with a sticker that's like 2nd gen Threadripper ready out of the box. Anyways, I'm gonna clean up a little bit, I'm going to reconnect everything. Pray for my thumbs. I've got some more PSU cables to move, and I don't know. I looked up online to see if maybe there's a better way to do it, because it hurts a lot. Like, they pinch really badly, and they're really sharp, and you have to push really hard. And all the posts that I found were like, man up, why is your skin so soft? Get over it. So maybe it's a me problem? Maybe my hands just aren't tough enough? They're gonna be after this. And we're done. Look, it turns on and everything. It's finished, it works, it glows. I appreciate all of these things. After getting the BIOS updated and sorting out that whole mess, everything went surprisingly smoothly after that. You know, installed the drivers, downloaded everything, moved some stuff over. Works real good. So after having built and used it for a few days, a few of the parts that I'm really happy with, one is the M2 NVMe drives. Those things are amazing. They make cable management so much easier because you're not connecting SATA or power cables to them, they just slot into your motherboard. I had absolutely no issues with getting them recognized. They pretty much plug and play worked, and they are very fast. The Thermaltake water cooler has pulled through, which I appreciate because that was like a last minute swap out when the Corsair one wouldn't fit. And I'm really glad that considering how little overall time I spent researching it because I wanted to get something before the store closed, it's been working really well. It wasn't the easiest to install. The radiator went on just fine, but the bracket that connects the pump head to the Threadripper bracket, there's this little plastic ring thing that was murder to get on, and I looked up a bunch of videos of people installing it, and everybody's just like, blip, there it is. So I don't know why I had so much trouble. It took me and my husband's 4 hands combined and a screwdriver to like wedge it in, but once it was on, it was fine. The case, of course, I never really expected less from this case, but it's amazing. I have always loved Fantex cases, and they have not let me down yet. I'm sure they could if I got really unlucky with like a bad unit, but it's been perfect. I really like the design of these things. I like the removable dust filters. I wish I could say that I remove them to clean them more often, but you know, it's nice to have goals in life. Things that I have learned from this build. One, just because something has a sticker saying it's going to work with a thing does not mean that it's going to. Another thing that I learned is that there are quite a few different distinctions between RGB strips, and they don't all work with the same stuff. I had never worked with RGB before, and I think I've kind of given up on putting the strips in there. I had bought 5-volt 3-pin strips, and my motherboard has a 5-volt 4-pin port on it. And I'm going to return it, and I could order a replacement that would work well, and I could even potentially take the strip that's on the back of my couch and move it in here, but I want to be done with it, and honestly, the side panel faces under my desk anyways, so the only thing looking at it is my knees. Another thing, which is probably common sense but only occurred to me like halfway through the build, just because something is a thumb screw doesn't mean you have to use your thumbs. Some of them hurt your fingers, which are already mutilated from power cables. And if it has a Phillips head, thingy on it, it's okay to use a screwdriver. I caught on to that one a little bit late, but at least we're there. So yeah, that's about it. It is everything that I ever wanted, especially for editing. You're not going to see a huge difference in something like WoW because my other PC ran WoW perfectly fine. It's not a terribly high bar, but this thing chews through 4K footage like it's not even 4K. It doesn't even care. It doesn't even notice. I didn't even notice. I accidentally recorded a project in 4K without meaning to and didn't even notice until like the end of the edit. It was amazing. I'm looking forward to hopefully many years together with this computer. I would love to make some really cool stuff with it and attempt to get my money's worth. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this was interesting or helpful or both, or hopefully not neither. Let me know what you think and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.